Her unexpected collapse stunned everyone. The human guard cracked case. Lana had always been known for her strength, her intellect, and her determination. As a member of the Human Guard, a special division of the Galactic Federation's security force, she had earned respect from both her human and alien colleagues. She had trained for years to protect the delicate peace between humans and the countless alien species in the galaxy. There was no mission too difficult, no challenge too great for Lana. She had faced it all, but this mission was different. Lana's team had been sent to the planet Zeon, a world known for its strategic importance in the galaxy. Zeon was a planet where alien leaders often gathered to discuss matters of trade, diplomacy, and security. It was a neutral ground where various species, including humans, could discuss the future of their interstellar relationships. Zeon was bustling with activity, and today it was hosting a high-level diplomatic meeting with representatives from the Galactic Federation and several other alien empires. Lana had been briefed on the mission details just the day before. It seemed like any other mission, just another diplomatic operation where tensions ran high, and everyone had to stay calm and composed. The team had to provide security for the diplomats, make sure the meeting went smoothly, and ensure no one tried to sabotage the peace talks. Lana had been assigned as the team leader, a role that was familiar to her. She was always in charge, always the one others looked to for guidance. But today, something felt off. Zeon was different today. It felt colder, the air more oppressive. As Lana walked through the grand hall where the diplomats had gathered, her mind kept wandering. She had a sense that something wasn't right, but she couldn't place it. The usual hum of excitement and movement was quieter than usual. The alien species, normally so lively and confident, seemed anxious, their conversations hushed and fleeting. Lana's sharp eyes scanned the room, her instincts telling her to stay alert. Something was about to happen. It was during the middle of the second session when it happened. Lana was standing near the main entrance, keeping watch over the room. The diplomats were discussing trade agreements, and things seemed to be going smoothly. But then, it occurred. Without warning, Lana suddenly felt dizzy. Her vision blurred, and a strange numbness began to spread across her body. She blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the sensation, but it only worsened. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the floor, her body unable to support itself. Her team rushed to her side immediately, but by the time they reached her, Lana was already unconscious. Her breathing was shallow, and her pulse was weak. The room was filled with a stunned silence. No one knew what had happened. Her fellow guards, who had seen her fight countless enemies and survive unimaginable conditions, were at a loss. Lana, the unshakable leader of the Human Guard, had collapsed without warning. The alien representatives in the room were just as stunned. They had seen humans display incredible strength and resilience in the past, but nothing like this. Lana's collapse was a blow to the morale of everyone present. She had been a symbol of human strength, an example of what their species was capable of. And now she was lying there, motionless. The medics on Zeon were quick to arrive. They attempted to stabilize Lana, but even their advanced technology couldn't explain what was happening to her. They ran tests, checked her vitals, and monitored her condition closely, but nothing seemed to make sense. It wasn't an injury, and there were no signs of poisoning or external damage. The medics were perplexed. What could have caused this? The leader of the Zeon Council, an alien named Zarathar, stood in the corner, watching the scene unfold. His alien features, typically calm and composed, were twisted with concern. As a representative of Zeon, he had been involved in many peace negotiations, but nothing like this. He had never seen a human collapse in such a way, and he didn't know what to make of it. "Is she going to be all right?" he asked one of the medics, his voice laced with tension. The medic shook his head. "We're doing everything we can, but we can't explain this. It's as if something is shutting her down from the inside." Zarathar frowned, unsure of what to say. He had no answers. No one did. Back at the Human Guard base, the news of Lana's collapse spread quickly. Her team, led by her closest friend Xander, was shaken. Xander had known Lana for years, and they had been through countless missions together. He knew her better than anyone else. They had fought side by side in the most dangerous parts of the galaxy, and she had always been the one to lead them through every challenge. But now she was lying unconscious, and Xander didn't know how to fix it. He paced back and forth in the command room, his mind racing. What had happened to Lana? Why had she collapsed? It didn't make sense. He couldn't understand it. Lana was invincible. She had always been. He turned to one of the other members of the human guard, Ava. We need to find out what happened. There's something more to this. I know Lana, and this isn't just a simple medical issue. Ava nodded, her face grim. I agree. We've seen human strength and resilience firsthand, but something about this feels different. It's almost like someone tried to hurt her, but we don't know how. Xander clenched his fists. We need answers. I'm not going to let them get away with this. Lana deserves better than this. Xander knew they had to act fast. There was no telling how long Lana would remain unconscious, and they couldn't afford to wait. He sent out a message to the rest of the human guard team, instructing them to gather all available information on Lana's mission and any potential threats on Xi'an. They needed to investigate every detail, no matter how small. The answers were out there, and Xander was determined to find them. As the team began to investigate, they uncovered something unexpected. Lana had been working on a secret assignment, one that even her closest friends didn't know about. She had been investigating a series of mysterious disappearances on Xi'an. People had been vanishing without a trace, and the authorities had been unable to find any leads. Lana had been digging into these cases, trying to connect the dots. She had uncovered a dark conspiracy, one that no one had expected. Xander's heart sank as he realized that Lana's collapse might not have been an accident. She had been targeted, and whatever she had uncovered was the key to understanding why she had fallen. Someone didn't want her to finish what she had started. Someone was trying to stop her from exposing the truth. He knew that he had to get to the bottom of this. Lana had always been there for him, and now it was his turn to be there for her. He would find the answers, no matter what it took. As the investigation deepened, Xander and the team discovered more and more about the conspiracy Lana had been investigating. It wasn't just a simple case of a few missing people. It was far bigger than that. The disappearances were linked to a series of covert operations, with powerful figures from within the Galactic Federation involved. And Lana had been getting closer to uncovering their secrets. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the team knew they had little time. They had to act before it was too late. But as they prepared to take action, they couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. The truth was out there, but finding it wouldn't be easy. And as they would soon discover, the stakes were higher than they could have ever imagined. Xander's mind raced as he paced around the small command room. Every step felt heavy, weighed down by the pressure of what was at stake. Lana was unconscious, lying in a medical facility on Xi'an, her body still, but her mind was locked away. The question that had haunted Xander since her collapse lingered in the back of his mind. What had happened to her? What had caused this sudden, mysterious collapse? He clenched his fists, fighting the rising frustration. Lana had always been there for him, during battles, during quiet moments, and in times of doubt. She had always led their team with strength and conviction. She was a symbol of resilience, someone who could never be broken. But now, here she was, incapacitated and unable to defend herself. And it was up to Xander and the rest of the human guard to figure out why. The investigation was moving forward, but the answers remained elusive. Xander knew they needed to dig deeper, to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. He turned to Ava, his trusted teammate, who was sitting at the main console, analyzing data from the mission. Her face was serious, her brow furrowed with concentration. Ava, have you found anything? Xander asked, his voice tight with impatience. Ava looked up from the console, her eyes tired but determined. We've been reviewing the footage from the diplomatic meeting, and there's something strange. I'm not sure if it's related to Lana's collapse, but it's definitely worth looking into. Xander leaned over her shoulder, peering at the screen. The footage showed Lana standing near the entrance of the hall, scanning the room, her sharp eyes alert as she kept watch over the diplomats. She looked perfectly fine, strong, composed, and focused. But then something happened. A brief flicker, almost imperceptible, passed over her face. It was as if something had triggered a reaction in her, but it was so quick that no one could have noticed it at the time. What is that? Xander asked, his heart sinking as he watched the footage again. Was there something in the air? A signal? Ava rewound the footage and paused it at the moment where the flicker appeared. I'm not sure, it's so fast it's hard to say, but there's definitely something strange about it. It's almost like she was reacting to something. Xander's thoughts were spinning. What could have triggered that reaction? Was it a biological attack, or was it something else? He needed answers, and he needed them fast. "We need to dig deeper," Xander said, his voice firm. "I want every detail from the mission, every report from Xeon. Whatever Lana was investigating, it's more important now than ever." Ava nodded and began pulling up more data from the mission. As the team worked through the information, Xander's mind kept returning to one question. What had Lana been investigating? She had always been so focused on her work, so driven by her need to uncover the truth. But whatever she had discovered had led her to this: her collapse, the strange symptoms, and the cryptic reaction in the footage. Whatever it was, it had been dangerous. Xander knew that Lana had been working on something in secret, something that she hadn't shared with anyone, not even him. She had been investigating a series of disappearances on Xeon, but beyond that, there were no clear answers. The more Xander thought about it, the more it became apparent that Lana's collapse wasn't an accident. It was tied to something far bigger, something that no one had seen coming. The team worked through the night, scouring reports, cross-referencing data, and analyzing every lead. But it wasn't until the morning that Ava found something that made Xander stop in his tracks. "I think I've got something," Ava said, her voice barely above a whisper. Xander rushed to her side, his pulse quickening. "What did you find?" Ava looked up at him, her expression grim. Lana was investigating the disappearances, yes, but she also uncovered something else. A secret network, a covert organization with ties to some of the highest-ranking officials in the Galactic Federation. People have been vanishing, but they're not just disappearing. They're being taken by force by people with power, and the Federation has been covering it up. Xander's heart skipped a beat. "A secret organization? You mean there's an entire network operating within the Federation?" Ava nodded, her fingers dancing over the keys as she pulled up more data. "Yes, it seems like a shadow group operating behind the scenes, and Lana was getting close to exposing them. She was piecing it together when she collapsed." Xander's mind raced. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. If Lana had been getting too close to the truth, then that meant someone had to stop her. Someone didn't want her to expose what was really happening, and they would do anything to prevent it. It all made sense now: the flicker on the footage, Lana's collapse, the strange symptoms. She had been targeted. "We need to get to Xeon," Xander said, his voice hard with determination. "We need to find out everything Lana knew, and we need to do it before they can cover their tracks." Ava nodded. "Agreed, but we need to be careful. Whoever is behind this is powerful, and they've managed to keep everything under wraps for a long time." Xander clenched his jaw. "We're not backing down, not now, not after everything Lana has done for us. She's been there for us when we needed her, and now it's our turn to be there for her." The team quickly prepared to travel to Xeon. They knew that they had to move fast. Every minute they wasted brought them one step closer to the unknown forces that had attacked Lana and threatened everything she had worked for. As they made their way to the transport shuttle, Xander's thoughts were filled with doubt and fear. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. Whoever was behind this conspiracy had to know they were coming. But Xander couldn't let that stop him. Lana had always believed in him, and now it was time for him to return the favor. The journey to Xeon felt long, each passing second a reminder of the danger they were heading into. But Xander didn't let his fear show. He had always been the one to lead the team, to take charge in times of crisis. And now, with Lana's life on the line, he would do whatever it took to uncover the truth. When they arrived on Xeon, the city looked the same as it had the day before, bustling with activity, filled with diplomats and visitors from all over the galaxy. But Xander couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air seemed heavier, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The team made their way to the medical facility where Lana was being held. Xander's heart pounded in his chest as they entered the sterile, quiet room. Lana lay there, pale and still, hooked up to various medical devices. She looked so fragile, so vulnerable, and Xander hated seeing her like this. She had always been the strong one, the one who protected everyone else. Now it was his turn to protect her. "We'll find out who did this," Xander whispered to her, his voice full of conviction. "I promise." The rest of the team nodded, their faces determined. They knew what they had to do. They would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. And they would make sure that those who had harmed Lana would pay for what they had done. The tension in the room was palpable. Xander stood over Lana's unconscious form, the quiet hum of medical machines filling the space around them. His mind raced with questions, each one more urgent than the last. What had Lana uncovered? Who could have wanted to stop her so desperately? And more importantly, why? He had always known that their missions weren't without danger, but this was something different. Lana's collapse hadn't been an accident. She had been targeted. The team was on edge, but they knew that they couldn't afford to be distracted by the weight of the situation. They needed to focus, to find the answers, and to find them fast. The conspiracy they had uncovered was massive, and the people involved were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. As the team gathered in a small meeting room just outside the medical bay, Xander tried to keep his thoughts organized. Ava had already started reviewing the data from the mission, cross-referencing every lead they had, but nothing was adding up. There were too many questions and not enough answers. "We've got to act fast," Xander said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but his eyes were filled with urgency. "Lana was onto something big. We can't let them cover it up." Ava nodded, her face grim. "I agree. But we need to be careful. Whoever is behind this is powerful, and they've managed to stay in the shadows for a long time. They won't let us get too close without doing something about it." Xander clenched his fists. "I don't care how powerful they are. I'm not letting them get away with this." The others in the room exchanged looks, understanding the determination in Xander's voice. They had all seen Lana face impossible odds before, and they knew she would want them to continue her mission. They couldn't let her fall victim to this conspiracy. They had to finish what she started. "We need to find out everything Lana knew," Xander continued. "She was investigating disappearances, but there's more to it. We need to track down every lead she was following and find out what she uncovered." The team got to work, their eyes focused on their screens as they sifted through reports and documents, trying to piece together the puzzle. Hours passed, and the pressure mounted. But just when it seemed like they were getting nowhere, Ava found something that made her stop in her tracks. "Xander, you need to see this," she said, her voice tense. Xander rushed over to her side, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Ava pointed to the screen. "This is a report from the Xeon government. It's not something we were supposed to see, but I managed to get access to it. It mentions a secret organization, one that's been operating behind the scenes, manipulating the political and economic landscape of the galaxy." Xander felt a chill run down his spine. "A secret organization? What does that have to do with Lana?" Ava clicked through the report. "This organization has been pulling the strings for years. They're responsible for the disappearances, but it's bigger than that. They've infiltrated key positions within the Galactic Federation, and they've been using their influence to control decisions, to sway outcomes in their favor. Lana was getting too close to uncovering their true purpose." Xander's mind raced. "And they knew she was getting too close," Ava nodded grimly. "Exactly. This organization doesn't just operate on Xeon. They're everywhere, and they have the resources to take out anyone who gets in their way." Xander's anger flared, but he pushed it down. He needed to stay focused. "Where do we go from here?" Ava scrolled through more data. "We need to track down the leaders of this organization. They're the ones who pulled the strings to take Lana down. If we can expose them, we can stop this whole thing before it gets any worse." Xander nodded. "Let's do it." They worked through the night, piecing together fragments of information, following trails that Lana had left behind. Every step brought them closer to the truth, but it also became clearer how dangerous the people they were dealing with really were. By morning, they had a lead. A former diplomat, someone who had once been trusted by the Galactic Federation, had gone missing shortly after he'd made contact with Lana. He had been trying to warn her about the organization, but before he could tell her everything he knew, he vanished without a trace. Xander knew this was the break they needed. "We need to find him," Xander said, determination in his voice. "If he was in contact with Lana, he has the information we need." The team didn't waste any time. They boarded the shuttle and made their way to the coordinates they had found in the report. The journey felt long, each minute passing like an hour, but Xander kept his focus. They were getting closer. They could feel it. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found themselves in a remote part of Xeon, far from the bustling city where the diplomats had gathered. The area was quiet, almost too quiet, and the feeling of unease hung in the air. They approached an abandoned building, its walls cracked and covered in moss, its windows shattered. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. "This is it," Xander said, motioning for the team to follow him. "Stay alert." The team moved cautiously, their weapons ready. They had no idea what they were walking into, but Xander had learned long ago that the best way to face the unknown was head-on. The building was dark, the only light coming from the flickering glow of their handheld devices. The air smelled stale, like dust and decay. They made their way through the building, room by room, until they found what they were looking for, a small, locked room in the back. Xander forced the door open and they stepped inside. The room was bare except for a single desk in the corner. Papers were scattered across the desk, some of them half-burned, others hastily scribbled with notes. But what caught Xander's attention was a single datapad sitting on the desk. It looked old, like it had been there for a long time. Ava picked it up and began to examine it. "This is it," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "This is the evidence we need." Xander's heart skipped a beat. "What does it say?" Ava scanned through the datapad, her eyes widening as she read the contents. "It's a list of names, high-ranking officials in the Galactic Federation, diplomats and politicians. They're all connected to this secret organization. And there's more. Lana's name is on the list." Xander felt his stomach twist. Lana knew she was one of the targets. Ava nodded, but she didn't just find out, she was close to exposing everything, and now we know why she collapsed. Whoever is behind this doesn't want their secrets exposed. They'll stop at nothing to protect themselves. Xander clenched his fists. "We can't let them win. We're going to expose them, all of them." The team knew what they had to do. They had the evidence they needed. It was time to take the fight to the secret organization and end this conspiracy once and for all. But as they left the building, a new fear gnawed at the back of Xander's mind. They had uncovered the truth, but they were not the only ones looking for answers. The people behind the conspiracy were powerful, and they would stop at nothing to silence those who threatened to reveal their secrets. The team was walking into the heart of danger, but they knew they couldn't turn back now. It was a race against time. They had to expose the truth before it was too late. The situation was growing more urgent by the minute. Xander's hands trembled slightly as he read the data on his device. They had discovered something huge, something that could change everything. The secret organization that had been operating within the Galactic Federation for years was real. They were powerful, and they had connections that went all the way to the top. But the truth was now within reach, and Xander wasn't about to let it slip away. "Is everything ready?" Xander asked, his voice steady despite the tension swirling in his chest. Ava looked up from the console, her face serious. "We've gathered all the information we can, the names, the locations, everything, but we can't just send this out. It'll be too risky." "I know," Xander said, pacing the room. "We need to expose them, but we need to do it carefully. We can't give them a chance to cover their tracks. We need to take them down one by one." The plan was simple, yet dangerous. They would follow the leads they had gathered, tracking down each member of the secret organization, cutting off their resources, and revealing their involvement to the galaxy. It was the only way to bring them down. But as Xander thought about it, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. "We can't afford to waste any more time," Xander said, his voice sharp. "If we wait too long, they'll move again, and Lana, she won't wake up until we stop them." Ava nodded, understanding the weight of Xander's words. "We're ready, we just need to move fast." The team gathered their things, preparing for the mission ahead. They knew it wouldn't be easy. The organization they were up against had been operating in the shadows for years, and they had the resources to fight back. But Xander had always believed that no matter how powerful the enemy, human ingenuity and determination could overcome anything. They set off for the first target location, a heavily guarded facility on the outskirts of Xeon. It was one of the secret organization's known bases of operation, and Xander knew that if they could take it down, it would send a clear message. They had to act swiftly, no hesitation, no mistakes. As they approached the facility, Xander felt the weight of the situation settle over him. This wasn't just about finding answers anymore. This was about saving Lana. This was about stopping the people who had tried to destroy her, and stopping them before they could hurt anyone else. The facility was hidden deep in a forest, far from the prying eyes of Xeon's bustling cities. It was an old building, abandoned long ago, but now repurposed by the secret organization for their own purposes. The thick trees surrounding it gave the place an eerie, isolated feeling. Xander felt a chill run down his spine as they got closer. They landed their shuttle a short distance from the facility, keeping their approach quiet and undetected. They would need to infiltrate the building without alerting the guards. The last thing they wanted was to be caught before they had the chance to get inside and gather information. Xander motioned for his team to follow him as they moved through the dense underbrush. They worked in silence, their movements swift and deliberate. They had done this countless times before, but today felt different. There was more on the line now. Lana's collapse had shown them just how far the enemy was willing to go to protect their secrets. And Xander was determined to make sure that no one else would have to suffer because of it. They reached the outer walls of the facility and found an entry point, an unguarded side door that led into the building's lower levels. Xander took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest, and gave the signal to move. The team slipped inside, their steps muffled by the thick carpet of dust and dirt. The hallway was dimly lit, the faint glow from overhead lights casting long shadows on the cracked walls. The air smelled musty, as though the building had been abandoned for years. But Xander knew better. This place was far from abandoned. It had been repurposed for something far more sinister. They moved quietly through the facility, sticking to the shadows, avoiding the few guards that patrolled the hallways. Xander's mind was sharp, scanning every corner, every movement. He couldn't afford to be caught off guard. They had to find the main control room, where the organization was pulling the strings. It was the heart of their operation, and Xander was determined to take it down. As they made their way deeper into the building, Xander couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The silence in the halls felt wrong. There should have been more guards, more activity. But the facility seemed almost too quiet. It was as though they were walking through a ghost town. Then, just as Xander was about to lead the team down another hallway, a voice echoed through the comms. "Xander, get out of there, now!" It was Ava. Her voice was urgent, filled with panic. "What's going on?" Xander asked, his heart racing. "They know we're here," Ava replied, her voice tight with fear. "They've already locked down the entire facility. You're not going to make it out." Xander's blood ran cold. They had been discovered. "Stay calm," Xander said, trying to think quickly. "We need to finish this. If they know we're here, then it's already too late to turn back. We'll have to fight our way out." He looked at his team, his eyes hard with resolve. They weren't going to give up now. Not after everything they had already gone through. Xander motioned for them to move faster. They had to find the control room before the entire facility locked down completely. The team rushed through the hallways, their footsteps echoing in the quiet space. Every door they passed, every corner they turned, felt like a new threat waiting to be unleashed. Then finally they reached it, the control room. Xander threw open the door, his pulse pounding in his ears. Inside, a group of armed guards stood, their backs to the team. They hadn't expected an attack. It was their mistake. Xander and his team moved quickly, taking out the guards with precision. No one was killed, just incapacitated. They didn't have time for anything else. Xander made his way to the central console, his fingers flying over the keys as he accessed the facility's systems. He pulled up a list of names, data, and encrypted files. His heart skipped a beat when he saw it. There on the screen were the names of the people responsible for the conspiracy, the ones who had been orchestrating everything from the shadows. The list included high-ranking Federation officials, diplomats, and military leaders. They were all part of the organization, all complicit in the plan to destabilize the galaxy. "This is it," Xander said, his voice low but filled with triumph. "We've got them." Ava's voice came through the comms again, this time more controlled. "Xander, you've got to get out of there. They've triggered the lockdown. The facility is going into full lockdown mode. You're running out of time." Xander nodded, his mind already racing ahead. "We've got what we need. We'll make our way out. We'll send this to the Federation, expose them all." But just as they were about to leave, an alarm blared, loud and deafening. The walls around them began to shift, sealing off exits, locking doors, and trapping them inside. Xander's heart raced. "They've activated the lockdown. We need to move now." With no time to waste, Xander and his team dashed toward the nearest exit. They knew the battle wasn't over. They had the information they needed, but the escape was just beginning. The true fight had only just started. Xander's pulse was pounding in his ears as he sprinted down the hallway, the sound of his team's footsteps echoing behind him. The alarms blared louder, and the walls around them seemed to close in, every movement a reminder that they were on borrowed time. The facility was locking down, sealing off every exit, every way out. They had what they came for. The evidence, the names, the proof of the secret organization that had been operating in the shadows. But now they had to survive long enough to expose it. "We need to get to the shuttle," Xander shouted, his voice hoarse as he pushed forward, urging his team to keep pace. The others nodded, their faces set in grim determination. They knew the stakes. The evidence they had uncovered was crucial, but getting out alive was the first priority. The facility had been compromised, and they couldn't afford to be caught. They had to make it to the shuttle and escape before the lockdown became permanent. Xander's mind raced as he took a sharp turn down another hallway. The plan had been simple: infiltrate the facility, gather the data, and leave before anyone realized they were there. But the organization had known they were coming. The sudden lockdown was a sign that they had underestimated their enemies. Ava's voice crackled through the comms. "Xander, the system's locking down all the exits. We've got to move faster." "We're almost there," Xander replied, pushing his legs harder as the shuttle bay came into view. They had almost made it, just a few more steps and they would be free. But just as Xander thought they had a clear shot, the lights flickered, and the doors to the shuttle bay slammed shut with a loud bang. The sudden noise startled everyone, and for a moment it felt as if the world had stopped. The lockdown had trapped them. Xander swore under his breath, his mind searching for a way out. The facility's systems were too secure. There was no way to override the shutdown in time. They were stuck, and the only option left was to fight their way out. Xander turned to his team, who had already begun to form defensive positions. "We're not giving up. We'll find another way. Stay sharp." The team took cover behind columns and machinery, their weapons raised as they prepared for the worst. Xander's heart was still racing, but his focus had narrowed. They weren't leaving without that shuttle. They had to survive, and they had to make sure the information they had would get out. The galaxy needed to know the truth. The first guard appeared at the far end of the shuttle bay, his weapon raised. He hadn't expected them to be ready, and Xander didn't hesitate. He shot first, the sound of the blaster echoing through the room as the guard fell to the ground. His body hit the floor with a soft thud, and the rest of the team immediately opened fire, taking down 2 more guards in quick succession. But the facility was full of guards, and they kept coming. More footsteps echoed down the hallways, and soon Xander could hear the sounds of reinforcements. The team was outnumbered, but they weren't going down without a fight. "We need to move now," Xander shouted, his voice tight with urgency. He knew that if they didn't leave soon, they would be overwhelmed. They had to get to the shuttle and escape, or all of their efforts would be in vain. Ava, who had been keeping an eye on the facilities systems, spoke again. "The shuttle bay doors are still locked, but I've found a bypass. It'll take a minute to hack the system and open the doors." Xander nodded. "Do it. We'll cover you." The team set up a defensive line, keeping the guards at bay as Ava worked quickly. Xander could see the sweat on her forehead, the strain of the situation wearing on her. They didn't have much time, but they couldn't afford to rush. If they did, they might make a mistake. They needed precision, and they needed to stay focused. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. The sounds of blaster fire echoed, and the air was thick with tension. Xander's hands were steady, his mind sharp, but he could feel the weight of the situation. They had come too far to fail now. Ava's voice came through the comms, quiet but relieved. "I've almost got it, just a few more seconds." Xander's eyes scanned the room, watching the movements of the guards. He didn't trust them to hold off for much longer. The reinforcements were coming in full force. They had to act now. "Go!" Xander shouted as Ava gave him the signal. She had unlocked the shuttle bay doors. The team rushed forward, moving as quickly as they could while still maintaining a defensive position. Xander led the way, his blaster raised as he fired at the incoming guards. The team followed closely behind, pushing forward, not stopping, not looking back. They had one goal now: get to the shuttle. The shuttle bay doors slid open with a hiss, and Xander's heart skipped a beat. The shuttle was there, ready for launch. It was their only way out, their only chance to escape. "Get in," Xander ordered, his voice sharp. The team rushed toward the shuttle, their bodies moving with precision as they climbed aboard. Xander was the last to enter, and as he turned to give one final look at the facility, he saw the explosion of blaster fire coming from all directions. The guards were closing in, but they were too late. Xander slammed the door shut and activated the shuttle's engines. The familiar hum of the engines filled the room, and with a roar, the shuttle shot into the sky, leaving the facility behind. The team was silent as they ascended through Xeon's atmosphere, the city below them fading into the distance. They had made it. They had survived. And now they had the evidence they needed to bring down the people who had been pulling the strings in the shadows. Xander collapsed into the seat, his body exhausted but his mind racing. They had won, but the battle wasn't over. The conspiracy they had uncovered was far-reaching, and there were still people out there who would stop at nothing to protect it. But they had a plan. They had the evidence, and they were going to make sure the galaxy knew the truth. Ava, who had been monitoring the ship systems, turned to Xander. "We've got the data, Xander. The Federation will know what happened, but we need to get this to them before anyone else tries to stop us." Xander nodded, his eyes focused on the stars ahead. "We'll get it to them. We'll make sure this never happens again." As the shuttle flew through space, heading toward the Federation headquarters, Xander's thoughts turned to Lana. She was still unconscious, still trapped in whatever darkness had claimed her mind. But Xander knew they had done everything they could to protect her, and they would keep fighting for her, for the truth, and for the galaxy. They had faced down the secret organization, they had survived, and now they were going to expose the truth, no matter the cost. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Xander knew one thing for sure. They wouldn't stop until justice was served.